Hey everyone, welcome back to Classic Compass, where we explore how ancient stories shape our modern world. So, I'm Sylvia Kang, and I'm so excited to be joined today by someone amazing, Masha. She's from Ukraine.
Hey everyone, I'm so glad to be here to give an interview for Classic Compass.
Yay! Okay. So it's been such an inspiration getting to know you and your passion for rebuilding not just cities but also values. I think it really connects what we explore on this podcast. But let's talk about that rebuilding. Rome was sacked multiple times in history, but every time it was rebuilt. Slowly, deliberately. So what does it mean to you to rebuild not just infrastructure but identity?
So thank you for your question, first of all, and I'm gonna say that rebuilding Ukraine is a long process, but it's also important to make sure that the territories that were occupied, I have a hope that will free them, and occupy them. For me, it's important for people who stayed there to understand that they need to be part of Ukraine and they're Ukrainians and to value our Ukrainian values and to not proclaim themselves as Russian people or is also support Russia. For me, it's important because many people who stayed on the occupied territories, they didn't have an opportunity to move somewhere abroad or to another city because many old people, they're not capable of moving to another city or judging their lives in the age of 80, for example. The most important part is to make sure that all Ukrainians stay Ukrainians after occupation and after everything that they went through.
Yeah, I definitely hear you on that. And I think it also reminds me of the Aeneid. The Aeneid is an ancient Roman mythological book. In the Aeneid, the main character Aeneas loses everything, but he carries his people's memory with him. So I feel like rebuilding becomes an act of loyalty to the past. So to you, what's a classical figure or moment that really speaks to you? For example, one classical figure, Cicero, once said, "To be ignorant of what occurred before you were born is to remain always a child." So history, when we take it seriously, becomes a form of resistance. So what's a figure or a moment that really speaks to you?
Okay, I'm gonna take an example of Ukraine. Smell, because it's from Kherson, which is a city on the south of Ukraine. It was occupied by Russian people in 2022, I guess. They occupied by Ukrainians in 2023 again. And I saw videos of how people, how citizens of Kherson, they met our soldiers, they met our military men and women, and they were waiting so much for our people to come because they were for a couple of months, I believe, under Russian occupation. Yeah, and it really spoke to me the most because people love Ukraine, people want to be part of Ukraine and continue living in Ukraine. It was just so sincere. So they're holding Ukrainian flags because under occupation, just to clarify, you're forbidden basically to speak Ukrainian. It's forbidden to mention Ukrainians in a positive context. There are Russian soldiers all over the city. So at the time of occupation, they always check your phone. You should do everything connected with Ukraine. So I just heard the stories of my friends who were under occupation, lived there for a period of time there. And yeah, the moment people celebrating freedom and the occupation, I think that it spoke to me the most. And also one thing that spoke to me the most is how resilient our children, our teenagers are, who occur to be in such difficult situations. Because as for me, fortunately, my city, because of occupation of Kherson, it wasn't occupied because Kherson is here and Odessa is here basically, and if we didn't deoccupy Kherson, my city would be under occupation. So yeah, and really appreciate our army that we did this basically. And the children who were under occupation at the time, they had diaries, and one of those teenagers, it was my friend, a close friend of mine. She jotted down, she journaled every day what was happening day in, day out in Kherson, and how she and her family went through that. Yeah, and it just made me realize our teenagers and how strong they are, no matter their age, because she was only 14. Now I'm just so sorry, including for myself and for my brother and for everyone, for each child and teenager in Ukraine, that they witnessed that and they have to live in the war, hearing air raid alerts and stuff like that, and that they don't have capital food and childhood. It's really scary.
So Yeah, first of all, that's very, very inspiring. And I know so many of our listeners are young and many of them are students. What will you say to someone who feels overwhelmed by the weight of history?
I would say, basically, this quote I heard from grandmother, and she said that history is very repetitive. As people, they should learn on their mistakes that they made some time like ago. I would say that if you made any mistakes in the past, you should analyze them to what they're making in the future. Because, for example, politics, it's also kind of like a game. It's a big game, and people often make mistakes, and they didn't work. They did not like work on their mistakes. That's why we have wars actually in our century. So that's also what my grandmother told me, and I just thought about it for a couple of minutes, and I realized that yeah, we have like war century in, century out, 19th, 20th, 21st. It's so repetitive. And not talking about politics, just learn on your mistakes, improve yourself every day, and make sure that you become best version of yourself.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that's really beautiful, and I think of classics as kind of a compass, not to tell us exactly where to go, but to remind us which directions we've come from as well. So, Amasha, thank you so much for sharing your insight, your heart, and your hope with us today. And to everyone listening, don't forget to check out more episodes on classiccompass.org. And remember, history lives in you, so let's carry it forward.